Happy Wednesday. John Lorden here with another episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. Thank you so much for joining me here today. You know, I keep track of suggestions for Searchlight cases in an Excel sheet, and I think right now it's probably somewhere around 330, 340 records. A lot of different cases. And I process it in really bizarre ways. Sometimes I'll just jump into the middle and start looking through names, start looking through cases, look for one that has the right amount of information. Sometimes I'll jump all the way to the top because I don't want to forget those recommendations that might have come in a few years ago. Those are also still important cases. It's really kind of hard to figure out where we can best help with some of these cases. But I had the thought to jump to the top of my list, and then I was starting to wonder about a much larger list than I have. What about NamUs? What is record number 1 for missing persons in NamUs? And what I found when I started looking into that was a really interesting story of a time when there wasn't a whole lot of cooperation with these types of records, especially with lining them up with unidentified bodies, people speaking up, and it's really around the start of what we know and lean on today as NamUs, and it also involves some other good partners with them, and one guy in particular that's a little bit of a hero of mine. So I want to look into the number 1 record on NamUs today. That is a missing person named Anthony Ross Allen. And this is a case that is now almost 40 years old, still unsolved. Seems like there could be a chance that he left of his own accord. I still think that is in the realm of possibility. Of course, there's other considerations going on with all this. With a case of this age, when I saw how old it was, I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to cover it, because typically trying to find, especially online media, to give us the facts of a case like this, not very easy with cases this age. But this case has a lot going for it. His sister worked really hard to raise exposure. There's a lot of articles that were written about that. A lot of the articles are starting to disappear, but thanks to a couple of forums that were smart enough to copy the contents of those articles, we're going to be able to put together a pretty complete version of the story here. And I want to do that to save a bunch of this information. I mean, if one of these forums disappears, basically about half of this story just completely disappears into the ether of the internet of old. And this isn't stuff that has been captured by websites like archive.org. I'm not able to retrieve the actual old articles anymore. So I think it's important that we pull this all together and really go through this case and share it with everyone. Now, this is a picture of him about the time that he went missing at the age of 16. Of course, there's been a few new renditions or composites that have kind of been done on what he would look like now. This is the most recent one that was done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So this is NamUs record number 1, but before we get to NamUs, I want to start with an article that's just a little bit of the backstory and kind of shows how the creation of NamUs and this case are a bit intertwined. Starting here at a website called police1.com, an article from January 11th, 2006. Activists, officials call for better national system for identifying remains. Little Rock, Arkansas. After Laura Hood's 16-year-old brother disappeared in 1978, she once stopped her car along a dark road after spotting a man whose gait looked familiar. I just had to hear his voice, and so I would know, said Hood, who asked the stranger his name. Today, Hood accepts the possibility that her brother, Anthony Ross Allen, is dead and knows that a law enforcement agency somewhere may have custody of his remains, unaware of his identity. These people had names, said Hood of Fort Smith. They laughed, they cried, they had birthdays, and somebody loves them and wants to know where they are. Thousands of bodies remain unidentified in the United States. Only a few hundred DNA samples from unidentified bodies and families of missing persons have been entered into a national database known as CODIS for comparison. Most law enforcement agencies are not required by law to report information on unidentified human remains to any central database. So, as you guys can see from this article, we're getting directly to the heart of NamUs. NamUs is essentially two databases, one of unidentified bodies that have been found and another database of missing persons. It's pretty logical to realize that many of those unidentified bodies should be missing persons cases. And if there's some way to make those match up, we need to do that. And there's challenges just in terms of how law enforcement operates with this stuff from the get-go. This article is also going to address. When someone reported missing in one jurisdiction is found dead somewhere else, there's often no coordination between the two law enforcement agencies to try to identify the body. So that is essentially the big challenge. That is why NamUs was built. We can see here in 2007, they launched the Unidentified Persons Database. In 2008, they launched the Missing Persons Database. And then in 2009, they connected those databases to do automatic case comparisons. And that's just such a big benefit to what NamUs is. We have all these families looking for answers, searching for the truth. And in some of these cases, the answer is already out there. Their loved one has already been found, but there's no way to connect that information back to the missing persons report. And that's directly what NamUs is doing. I know NamUs has been working on getting legislation in place in all of the states so that it's mandated that missing persons records and unidentified persons have to be entered into their system. I wish them more success with that. I think it's a really important step to all this. But even having it be this kind of open source location that all these different agencies can go to is already a huge step in the right direction. And I appreciate them so much. It really makes me feel kind of good when I'm covering a case that I can see isn't in NamUs, and me just being a concerned citizen is able to enter that case myself, get a case manager on it, put it into this system of potential discovery of matching it up with an unidentified person. And on top of that, their staff has been really supportive, very helpful, very responsive. I've talked to them on several occasions about all kinds of different stuff. They're good people, and they're taking on a huge fight, and they're doing it the right way. I really just love the approach of NamUs. So let's take a look at the record. As you can see from the bar up here, namus.gov/missing persons/case number /1. This is the first record in the missing person section of NamUs. Missing person, NamUs MP number 1, Anthony Ross Allen, a white Caucasian male. Date of last contact, October 1st, 1978. Missing from Fort Smith, Arkansas at the age of 16. He would now be 57 years old. What else can we learn from here? He stands about 6'1" and weighed about 135 pounds. Very lean guy at the time that he went missing. And for last known location, once again, they're just citing Fort Smith, Arkansas. The NamUs case was created December 12th, 2008. Allen has been missing from Fort Smith, Arkansas since October of 1978. He was staying with friends nearby. His family was told he had traveled to Hartshorn, Oklahoma, and was last seen there. However, law enforcement and family members have never been able to locate anyone in Oklahoma who remembers ever seeing him. Family and law enforcement were later told that he was seen in Fort Smith again. This was the last information ever received. As you can see, pretty tricky case on the outset, also because he was known to leave home for periods of time and then kind of come back around. Keep in mind, this is late 70s. This is a whole different time. And his family kind of knew where he was living, and they let him do that. He had done it for a number of months, and then apparently he left that location to go live somewhere else. So for hair color, we have brown. For eye color, we have brown. That's about it for physical description. In terms of scars and marks, they do say he has a small mole on his cheek close to his nose. Also has a cyst on his calf. I've also seen some mention of having water on the knee, but I don't know if that's a permanent condition. I don't know if that's something we could really lean on for a physical feature characteristic. For clothing and accessories, Levi's jeans, size 28 by 34 or 35, and a Western t-shirt, or a Western shirt, button-up probably. I think they're describing what he would most typically wear here. Shoe size 11.5 or 10.5 or 11. Jewelry, we have no description. Of course, we don't have any tattoos cited or anything like that as well. So even just talking about the focus of NamUs and what they're trying to do with matching up against unidentified bodies. Now, I'm not an expert at it, but I have done some searches trying to match up unidentified persons with missing persons records. And I can tell you just from this profile, this is a tough match. Essentially, the major things that you can use in terms of search tools with the unidentified person is estimated age range, which you can't always really lean on too heavily. Sometimes those can be off a little bit. Sex, if they can determine it. And then primarily region or location. It gets really, really tough when you consider this is someone that might have been moving around, might have been moving, who knows, out of the state, maybe even all around the country. So a lot of the indicators that you would kind of drill in on for this case in particular, pretty tough right from the get-go. Let's continue over to another website that we support on a monthly basis here, charlieproject.org. We've got a few photos. I've heard a description of another photo. I think this photo in the middle is actually him a little bit younger than the time that he went missing. So that's where that one's coming from. And then, of course, we've got the age progression to age 56 that was released last year in 2018. Here we get a little bit of an update in terms of information. His nickname is Tony. For some reason, that wasn't cited on the NamUs profile, but we get some more info on the details of disappearance. Anthony was a sophomore at Southside High School when he was last seen in October of 1978. He left his mother's Fort Smith, Arkansas home to go live with friends in Cedarville, Arkansas. According to his friends, about 3 months later, Anthony and a friend went to that friend's uncle's home in Hartshorne or McAllister, Oklahoma. When the uncle found out the police were looking for the boys, he asked them to leave. Anthony and his friend then moved in with another man in the area who had a reputation for sheltering transients and runaways. Police stopped by the man's home about an unrelated matter, but Anthony thought they had come to pick him up, so he ran away. So if there is a saving grace to this case, it's that the intent is very clear from the start. Assuming that we can lean on the information in these stories, his intent was to stay away from home. So much so that when police showed up somewhere, he thought it was about him and he bolted. Does that mean that this has continued to this day, 40 years later? I don't know. Has something happened to him in between there? We don't know. Or does something happen close to the time that he disappears? Is this potentially a foul play situation? There's some comments to support that. There's some comments that don't support that. But let's continue here with more information at tapatalk.com. And this is the forum that has basically saved a bunch of these articles. I've gone looking for these articles. I've tried to resurrect these articles. They're not out there anymore. But thankfully, some smart users here pasted the contents of these articles into the actual thread. And thankfully, this website is still up serving this information. So let's cover some of it here. This was from an article called Family Continues to Hope, published April 7th, 2004 on Times Record, and it was written by Rusty Garrett. Alan's mother, Marilyn Allen, said she believes her last conversation with her son occurred at their home. He showed up with a friend and asked his sister to give him a ride to Kmart, where he intended to apply for a job. He acted like something was on his mind, Marilyn Allen said. I remember noting that to myself. Eventually, the Allens became worried about Tony. Thanksgiving and Christmas came and went, and he did not call. Those holidays were the first of 25 Thanksgivings and Christmases that would pass without a word. And this is written back in 2004. At this point, we're talking 40 holiday seasons. The Allens began piecing together information about Tony. It led them to Hartshorne, Oklahoma. Other than that, the Allens have nothing to tell them where their son and brother went from there, or even if he's still alive. The youth's disappearance was reported to Fort Smith police, who first treated it as a case of a runaway juvenile. In 1980, the case was upgraded to that of a missing person. Tony's parents and his 3 sisters have over the years followed up leads from people who thought they may have seen Tony at various locations and times. I can't tell you or even guess at the number of times we've put ourselves in vulnerable situations because of the slightest chance we might find him or find something out about him, his sister Hood said. It's not a complaint, just a fact. It's what we did. As a matter of fact, his mother also speaks in a different article about a time where she was driving around with her husband and they saw someone that was hitchhiking. They thought it might be him. They went back and spoke to the person. It wasn't him, but they wound up giving him a ride and giving him some money for getting a meal at the place that he wanted to go to. So I certainly get what she's saying here, that they're putting themselves at risk to really check out these situations and see if they can find her brother. Hood said she reached a point where she refused to talk about her brother or his disappearance. If the subject came up within the family, I left the room. If it was out somewhere and saw someone I thought would ask me about it, I turned the other way. My anger and resentment built up, but I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it was because I felt betrayed, abandoned, and angry at him for doing such a thing, but maybe Tony didn't betray or abandon me. Maybe he couldn't help it. Maybe it wasn't his fault. I think that statement in particular, and her being so open and sharing what she's going through emotionally, is super important for us to understand what it's like to be a family member of this. She's got resentment going on, thinking that he did this to us on purpose, but she doesn't know for sure. And then she kind of has this other side where she feels like she can't really blame him necessarily because maybe he didn't do this for sure. This is the problem with these cases. This is the pressure of having a missing persons case in your own family. You don't know. So the emotional landscape that you have to deal with is basically as big as all the considerations can be. It's not the same as you hearing, oh, he's fine. He just didn't want to be around the family anymore. Now I can let the resentment go. I can really focus on that. I can go maybe get help with that and work with someone to work through that. And I know that that's my particular issue. Here, they don't know what the issue is. They're just, it sucks. They're getting the worst of all the potential emotions that you can deal with because they're in this spot of not knowing which one's actually accurate. And all you have, you're talking 40 years, is time for those considerations to get to you. Recently, the Allen family considered a memorial service for Tony, something that would give us closure, his sister Hood said. But Tony's mother objected. She said she did not want a memorial service without knowing her son's ultimate fate. The development and growth of communications and the resources of the internet are helping them distribute and seek information. Hood said that she happened upon an internet account about a missing woman whose remains were unidentified for years until the efforts of dogged researchers finally enabled a family to learn the fate of their daughter. Linked to this story was the email of Todd Matthews, a U.S. media director for the Doe Network. So in terms of NamUs, and I mean, I have to say, I appreciate everyone that works at NamUs, but Todd Matthews always takes the extra step. He's someone that I know I can email right now, and I'm going to get something back from him in a few hours, as long as it's related to a missing persons case or helping the public better understand missing persons cases. He is on top of it. I've never seen someone like this guy. That's why you bump into his name in numerous articles, helping out on numerous cases. He's really a special dude, and I just wanted to call that out and say I really, really appreciate this, and even more so now that I'm seeing some of his history. This is a guy that worked for the Doe Network, obviously another great organization helping with these causes, now works with NamUs. There's stuff I learned about that I didn't even know about here, but so she reaches out to him. Of course, he's helpful, gets her in contact with the National Crime Information Center, so they actually get her brother's information entered into NCIC. They connect her with a forensic artist so they can start working from old photographs to develop a picture of what he could look like at this time, which at the time of this article would be 42 years old. Of course, they get him listed at the Doe Network website as all of a sudden there's resources that are looking to help with this case that has been sitting largely stagnant. And all of that is because of this community of amazing people that are willing to help on the internet, a lot like many of you out there with watching these videos. There is no right or wrong way to respond to this kind of crisis. There is no protocol for our situation, Hood wrote in the Doe Network article. But after almost a lifetime of experience, I now know that there are compassionate people who truly care and want to help. And I'm really proud to call myself one of those people and to know so many great people like you out there that care about these cases. Over at McAllisterNews.com, an article from October 22nd, 2005, Laura Hood still misses her brother, Tony. He was always friendly, very outgoing, and just a lot of fun to be around, Hood said. He was anything a girl could want from a brother. Sergeant Adam Holland of the Fort Smith, Arkansas Police Department has taken over the case in hopes of determining exactly what has happened to Alan. Quote, in late 1978, he was basically classified as a runaway. At that time, he had left his house, but his family had a good idea where he was. They knew that he was with some friends in Cedarville, Arkansas. He had left home before, but he always came back. About 3 months after moving to Cedarville, he leaves again. Another quote from Holland here. Some information came in from his old friends that Tony had places to stay in Hartshorn. So that's how we get the connection to Oklahoma. They said he had been in the area from late 1978 to early 1979. So if that information from Holland is accurate, if his friends are right that he was basically in Oklahoma from late 1978 to early 1979, that would kind of make it clear that he didn't want to be in contact with his family through that holiday season. I have no idea what that's about, but I'm just once again just trying to figure out the intent. Is this truly a runaway case with a man that would have stayed hidden from his family for 40 years for some reason, despite all the media and when the internet is born, all the social media that is kicked up around this case? Or does something happen to him around that period of time? That's really the big question that we're left with in this case. But let's continue with the details here. Alan then left Arkansas with his friends, Jerry, Jeff, and Jesse McAllister. And this is the only article that I've seen that actually mentions the name of his friends, but there's important considerations with that we're going to get to here. Their father and an uncle lived in Hartshorn, Hood said. The uncle had some kids about the same age as Tony and his friends. Holland and Hood both said the McAllisters are not involved in Tony's disappearance. They simply wanted to release the names in hopes that someone in Hartshorn may remember Alan through the McAllister family. So these are not suspects, but in terms of jostling those memories, that's why their names are now being released in this article. We believe he was last seen with an elderly black man in the Hartshorn area, Holland said. We think the man had horses or ponies on his property. Holland said the case went cold because of jurisdictional issues and a lack of solid leads. I wish we had more information on why they do believe he was seen with an elderly black man, and how would they know that that guy had horses or ponies on his property? I have no idea. I don't know if Tony was known to work with horses or something like that. It's pretty interesting to me considering that the other information is saying they couldn't verify that he was ever in Oklahoma, but now we have Holland saying that they think that he was in that area. Something trivial to them may be the piece of the puzzle I need, Holland said. Anything and everything I can get is important. He's asking for tips. Now, I don't know if he's still on this case. I would kind of doubt it just with the age of these articles. But as always, I do have contact information in the description box below. If you have information about this case, please use that contact information. Please send it in. maybe we can give this family some answers that they're looking for. At the time of this article, a $10,000 reward is offered for information leading to the location of Alan. I don't know if that reward is still available or not, but there is a number you can call if you need to remain anonymous. That will be in the description box down below as well. So let's continue. Another article that was saved at Tapatalk by Kenneth Fry with the Press Argus Courier editor from October 20th, 2006. Hood appeared on the internet radio program called Missing Pieces. Who knows? Maybe it will generate a lead, Hood said. Our fingers are crossed. Now, I didn't know this about Todd Matthews, but he used to host Missing Pieces. Once again, I had no idea, and it just goes to show you the lengths that this guy goes to help these cases. When Hood first turned to the Doe Network for help in finding her brother, she said she was apprehensive about the exposure that it would bring. When you've lived so many years of your life with so many people being fascinated about your deepest hurt and curious for details, you tend to shy away, she said. But the members immediately embraced me, my family, and my brother. Todd Matthews, host of Missing Pieces, said he was thankful to Hood for sharing with us a sister's undying love for her brother. You give us renewed strength and purpose and true inspiration, Matthews said. You're an amazing compliment to the cause. And I do think that is part of even doing these videos. I'm really trying to honor the person that's missing, trying to honor the family's love for that person. And I'm glad that Todd was able to say that to her and to really try to help her come to understand that. It's not that people want to poke around in your pain. Ultimately, most of us want to help. We want to help you with that situation and help you get out of that situation in some way. A lot of the times we can't, but if we never look at it, we have no chance at all of ever helping you. So it's one of those things where I understand what her point of view is. And it's a tightrope, every week doing this show is a bit of a tightrope act. October 30th, 2006, an article called 18-Wheel Angels Help Spread Word on the Missing, written by Wanda Freeman for the Times Record, sponsored by Project Jason, a nonprofit organization founded by Kelly Jolkowski of Omaha, Nebraska, whose elder son disappeared at age 19 in June 2001. 18-Wheel Angels is a volunteer program in which truck drivers and other highway travelers print off posters of a featured person and distribute the posters along their routes. What a great idea. You guys know another aspect to these videos, I love sharing great ideas and organizations that are helping. We have both in this article. Anthony Allen is featured in Campaign 56, running through the end of October. Hood said an age progression picture depicting her brother in his mid-40s is paired with a school picture. On top of that, another great idea, child pictured on police car recovered is the name of the article from July 12th, 2008. On Tuesday, the Fort Smith Department became the second police department in the country to post missing children's pictures on their patrol cars. Why don't we have that everywhere? What a great use. They're driving through our communities all the time. It just makes such good sense. 20 of the 30-car fleet are destined to each display pictures of children reported missing from the region. 2 cars each carry pictures of 2 local missing children. Morgan Nick, who was abducted from an Alma ballpark in June 1995 at age 6, and Tony Allen, a Southside High School sophomore who disappeared from his Fort Smith home in 1978. Their pictures depict them as they looked at the time that they went missing and as they would look now using age progression technology. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children provided the photos to all 3 agencies. Once again, so many good people out there, so many good organizations out there to help, and good ideas. It's amazing to me that we don't see that. I want to see more police cars with missing children on them. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Brittany Phillips case and her mother driving around the country with a rap that's raising awareness to her daughter's murder, and having a picture on it of what they thought the suspect looked like at the time. It just seems like such a good, smart idea. I don't know why we don't see more of that. And this idea is 10 years old, 11 years old at the time that this was written. So I don't know how that doesn't catch on. So one article I was able to pull back from archive.org is this one from kfsm.com. This was posted April 11th, 2007. Allen's family asked police to reopen the investigation in 2004. Sergeant Adam Holland said right away they hit a snag. The record storage facility was destroyed in the 1996 tornado. So a lot of the old archives or records where we'd be able to search and find tidbits of information were lost. What a tough blow to this case. I mean, the record storage facility decimated in a tornado. All that information that might have leads, might connect to leads that they're getting currently and help them form new thoughts, new theories, new pictures, gone. It's terrible, terrible. Those records included interviews with friends of Anthony's who may have seen him or knew where he was going in 1978. So investigators are making the best with what they have: photographs, DNA, and the internet. Fort Smith police also contacted the Center for Missing and Exploited Children to create a composite photo of what Anthony would look like today at age 43. I was kind of afraid to look at it, says Laura Hood, Anthony's sister, but when I did, my first reaction was surprise at the family resemblance, how much he looked like my dad. I don't know about you guys, but Laura's account through all this is just really tugging at my heart. I think she's being so open and honest about what she's struggling with. And it's these considerations that maybe you wouldn't think of being outside of this situation. And it adds to the complexity of all this in such a deep way. And one more touch over at Tapatalk. This is an article, once again, from the Times Record, written by Hikem Rach. I believe I'm getting that right. I might be totally wrong. Campaign spotlights missing man. This is from June 11th, 2007. The grand rally for the Road to Remember Tour 2007 will be held at 2 p.m. on Saturday at Central Mall in honor of Anthony Tony Ross Allen. The Road to Remember Tour is an annual event that travels through multiple states in an effort to renew interest in cold cases of missing persons throughout the nation, according to the Q Center website. This year's tour will hold rallies in 13 states. Once again, kind of another twist on what we see Brittany Phillips's mother doing in terms of driving across the country with the car wrap. But just so many people trying to help this family in so many different ways. And ultimately, here we are 40 years later, and we don't quite have the answers. The most recent article I could find was from only 5 years ago. This is posted June 2nd, 2014 at swtimes.com. The disappearance of 16-year-old Anthony Ross Tony Allen has taken its toll on his family since he went missing in 1978. His mother, Marilyn Allen, has kept extensive notes on any new developments in the case. He wasn't just a terribly rebellious boy. It wasn't like that at all, she said. It was just like he didn't want to be tied down. In October 1978, a friend had dropped Tony at the mall. That was the last time anyone has reported ever seeing him, his mother said. Although the Fort Smith Police Department on its website lists foul play as suspected in Allen's disappearance, Taylor said he reviewed the case and didn't find anything that specifically gave rise to such a belief, and that is Detective Jeff Taylor. I tried to find the website that it's referring to, and I believe the Fort Smith Police Department has deployed a new website, and the links are broken for that. Unfortunately, it wasn't captured. From everything that I have read, no one has actually said that they think anything bad happened, Taylor said. Everybody that was interviewed over the years has said that he was a very likable person, a very nice guy. Everybody liked him. Keep in mind, those interviews are probably more recent because we know that the old records in this case were all destroyed. Years later, Marilyn Allen learned that someone claiming to be Tony had gotten in touch with his older sister within months of his being reported missing. He told her that he was in Hartshorn, but when she went to go find her brother, he wasn't there. She never heard from him again. Marilyn Allen has since lent her familial DNA to put with her son's records. Authorities searched the home in Cedarville with cadaver dogs to no avail. A body found several years ago near Houston turned out to be negative for a match with Tony Allen, according to his mother. The cadaver dogs thing is interesting. So it shows that the friends that he was living with that were named in that previous article, that at least they were excluded in some way, probably because of that type of search. At least it was a consideration to them that, well, if we know that he was living here, let us run the cadaver dogs through. And there was no hit. So unfortunately, his sister Laura, at least at the time of this article, seems to have taken a pretty bad turn with how she's handling this case. The case has been especially hard on one of Tony Allen's younger sisters. Her mother says, this is a quote from Marilyn Allen, she's gotten to a point where she can't even talk about it anymore. And she's wondering if her work with the Doe Project, if looking into all these unidentified bodies time and time again, just eventually kind of wore on her and broke her down to this search, which you're talking 40 years. It's a very hard way to live a life when you're looking for that answer for that long. I certainly understand it. And this is the most recent article. I don't know if this is where she's at now, but as of 2014, it seems like that's where she's at emotionally with it. It's been hard on the family. It's hard, I know, when they die, but when you don't know if they've died, and if you don't know if they're alive or what, it's horrible, said his mother. Your life is never the same. Your whole family's lives are never the same. So unfortunately, that is all the information I could pull together on this case. There is a Web Sleuths thread I will include in the links down below. There's a Reddit thread. Neither of them are very long, but there might be some other considerations there. Also, America's Most Wanted Fans has very small, just a post and a reply to that post down there, but those conversations may grow. So I'll have links to all of those down below, as well as the Doe Network's page about this case as well. I really wanted to help in some way, and it's tough. I know this is a 40-year-old case. I know that this is a really hard one to significantly help. I hope pulling all this information together is helpful to kind of make another bright spot on the internet of information about Tony, about what was going on at that time, about what his family has gone through in the search for him. But on top of that, I wanted to do something else. So I know that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children does a lot of great work when it comes to like those age progressions. And of course, they do so many different things to try to keep our children safe and to help families that are dealing with missing children. So I've decided, in honor of Tony, that I am going to sign up over at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and we are going to start a monthly donation that will actually be in Tony's honor. And we're going to leave that on. We've got a few of those going right now. I know I mentioned earlier, Charlie Project. Of course, we've got Destiny to Rescue that's been going on for years. So as long as I'm here doing this type of work on YouTube, we're going to keep this one running too. This organization is too important, and they need support to help all these families. So I'll have a link down below. If you want to support the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, you can also do that. But if you're supporting me here at the channel, just know that you're a part of my team to keep them supported rolling forward from here on out. If you'd like to be part of that team, go to www.lordenarts.com. You can join Patreon. You can set up a payment through PayPal, or you could just buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here doing what I love doing, trying to help these families, helping these causes. It's just, I wish there was more I could do with this case. I really do. But I think I've done everything that I can. And in honor of NamUs case number 1, NCMEC is going to get an ongoing donation. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with me on this case. Please share this video. He could be anywhere in the country, or the person that has information about his case might be anywhere in the U.S. We need to keep exposure raised to this case. That last article about 5 years ago. I think it's time for another pump of light and exposure for Tony, and I hope that you'll help me do that. Take care, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brainscratch on the Lord and Arts channel.